Hey guys, tonight we are going to the edge of the river. While the storm rages outside, we are safe inside the most powerful building in the medieval village. We are entering the watermill. We are going to harness the flood and turn it into food. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now, feel the vibration of the floor, listen to the turning of the wheel, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Section 1. The storm and the river's edge. The rain comes down in sheets tonight. Heavy, relentless, drumming on the wooden roof above your head with a sound like 1,000 fingers tapping, tapping, tapping against the shingles. You can hear it even through the thick oak beams, even through the solid structure of this building that stands at the very edge of the racing water. The watermill. You are standing inside it now, standing on floorboards that are 2 inches thick, worn smooth by generations of feet, by the boots of the miller and his sons, by the bare feet of apprentices who carried sacks up the narrow stairs, by the careful steps of farmers who brought their grain here in the dark hours before dawn, hoping to be first in line when the wheel began to turn. The floor beneath you is vibrating. Not shaking, not trembling, but vibrating with a deep, almost subsonic frequency that travels up through the soles of your feet, through your ankles, into your bones. It is the kind of vibration you feel more than hear. The kind that seems to resonate in your chest cavity, in the space behind your sternum, as if the building itself has a heartbeat. And perhaps it does. Because outside, beyond these thick timber walls, the river is roaring. You cannot see it yet, not in this darkness, not with the rain streaming down the small, thick-glassed windows that are set high in the eastern wall, but you can hear it. Oh, you can hear it. A sound like distant thunder that never stops. A sound like the earth itself is being torn open and all the water in the world is pouring through the gap. The river is in flood tonight. It has been raining for 3 days. 3 days and 3 nights of grey skies and water falling from the heavens as if the clouds themselves were emptying out, as if winter had decided to pour itself upon the valley and test every structure, every wall, every foundation that human hands had built. And the river has answered. It has risen, swollen, spread beyond its normal banks until it covers the meadows on either side, turning fields into shallow lakes, turning pathways into streams. The willows that normally stand 20 feet from the water's edge are now half submerged, their lower branches dragging in the current, their trunks dark and wet and gleaming in whatever faint moonlight might penetrate the storm clouds above. But here at the mill, the river is not a gentle thing spreading across meadows. Here at the mill, the river is compressed, funneled, concentrated into a channel barely 30 feet wide, forced between stone embankments that were laid by the miller's grandfather, guided toward the great wooden wheel that waits in the darkness just beyond the western wall. And the sound it makes is extraordinary. Not the babbling of a brook, not the gentle rush of water over stones, but a roar, a deep, continuous roar that fills the air, that presses against the walls of the mill, that seems to vibrate in the very atmosphere. It is the sound of power, of raw, elemental force, of water that has traveled down from the high hills, gathering speed and volume, collecting every rivulet and stream and spring, until it arrives here as a black, muscular flood that could crush a man without even noticing. But you are safe. You are inside. Inside the watermill, where the walls are thick and the beams are strong and the foundation stones were set so deep into the earth that no flood in living memory has ever shifted them. Inside, where the air smells of old wood and grain dust and the particular scent of friction, where oak rubs against oak 10,000 times a day. The rain drums on, steady, hypnotic, like a rhythm that has no beginning and no end, like a pattern woven into the fabric of the night itself. And beneath that sound, beneath the rain, you can hear the river, Always the river, the low, sustained roar of it, the voice of water that has weight and momentum and purpose. Your eyes are adjusting to the dimness now. There is one lantern burning, just one. Hanging from an iron hook driven into the central post, the great vertical beam that rises from the ground floor all the way up to the roof peak, 40 feet above. The lantern flame flickers and steadies, behind its panel of scraped horn that diffuses the light into a warm, amber glow. And in that glow, you can begin to see the interior of the mill. The space is larger than you expected, high-ceilinged, the roof timbers disappearing into shadow above, but not wide, perhaps 20 feet across, perhaps 25, because this building is not about floor space. It is about height, about the vertical transfer of power from the river outside, through the wheel, up through the gears and shafts and stones that occupy the floors above. The floor you stand on is the main working floor, the grinding floor, where the great millstones do their patient work. But right now, in the stillness before the wheel is engaged, everything is motionless, silent, except for the rain and the river and the faint creak of timber as the building settles, as it responds to the pressure of the wind, to the vibration of the flood rushing past its foundations. You take a step forward. The floorboard beneath your foot gives slightly, not from weakness, but from the natural flex of wood that has been bearing weight for decades. The vibration intensifies for a moment, as if the building is acknowledging your presence, and then settles back into that deep, steady hum. To your left, against the northern wall, you can see sacks, grain sacks stacked and waiting. Some are full, tied at the neck with rough twine, the burlap stretched tight over the kernels within. Others are empty, folded and piled, ready to receive the flour that will be ground when the wheel turns. The sacks are pale in the lantern light, their fabric worn soft by handling, stained here and there with the dust of countless grindings. To your right, a wooden staircase, narrow, steep, leading down to the lower floor, where the wheel axle enters the building, where the great gears begin their work. The stairs are worn in the center of each tread, shaped by the passage of feet over years, over generations. And directly ahead, dominating the center of the room, are the millstones themselves. You cannot see them clearly yet. They are housed within a circular wooden casing, a drum of planks that rises about 3 feet from the floor, with a hopper mounted above. The hopper is a large wooden box, shaped like an inverted pyramid, positioned so that grain can flow down through its narrow bottom, opening into the gap between the stones below. But the stones are not turning yet. The wheel is not engaged. Outside, the river rushes past, its power unharnessed, pouring downstream toward the valley, toward the next village, toward the sea that lies somewhere beyond the horizon, days and days of travel from here. But soon, the gate will be opened, the water will be guided onto the paddles, and this entire building will come alive with purpose and motion and the deep, grinding work of transforming grain into flour. The rain continues its drumming. The river continues its roar. And you stand in the dimness, feeling the vibration in the floorboards, smelling the old wood and the grain dust, waiting for the wheel to turn. The storm intensifies for a moment. A gust of wind hits the eastern wall, and the rain suddenly sounds like gravel being thrown against the roof. Hundreds of tiny impacts all at once, and then it settles back into its steady rhythm. Drumming, tapping, endless. The lantern flame bends and recovers. The shadows shift on the walls. The great central post, thick as a man's body, stands solid and unchanging, its surface worn smooth by the brushing of hands and shoulders over the years. Everything in this building is wood and stone and iron. Everything is heavy and built to last, built to withstand the forces that will soon be unleashed within these walls. built to contain and channel and direct the power of the river into the simple, essential act of grinding. You can feel the potential of it, the weight of it, the certainty that when the wheel begins to turn, everything in this space will change. The silence will be replaced by sound. The stillness will be replaced by motion. The waiting will be replaced by work. But for now, there is only the rain, and the river, and the deep, patient vibration of a building that stands at the edge of power, waiting to harness it. Your breath is slow, steady, matching the rhythm of the rain. Your heartbeat is calm, settling into the same pattern, the same pulse, as if you too are part of this structure, part of this moment between stillness and motion. The floorboards creak softly as you shift your weight. The lantern flickers. The river roars. And the rain drums on and on and on, like a lullaby for the earth itself, washing the world clean while the watermill waits, strong and patient, for the work to begin. Section 2. The shelter of wood and purpose. Inside the watermill, you are enclosed, surrounded by timber, by oak beams that were trees once, growing on the hillsides above the valley, their roots deep in the earth, their branches reaching toward the sun. But now they are shaped, squared, joined with mortise and tenon, with wooden pegs driven so tight they will never work loose, with the careful craft of carpenters who understood that this building would need to withstand forces that most structures never face. Because this is not just a shelter from the rain. This is a machine. A wooden machine built around a single purpose, to capture the power of the river and transform it into motion, into the turning of gears, into the grinding of stone against stone, into the work that feeds a village, a town, a region. And you can feel it, even in the stillness, even with the wheel motionless outside. You can feel the purposefulness of this space, the way every beam, every post, every plank has been positioned with intention, with an understanding of the stresses it will bear, the forces it will channel, the vibrations it will endure day after day, year after year. The smell is distinctive. Not unpleasant, but strong, earthy, the smell of wood that has been worked hard, that has absorbed the friction of moving parts, the heat generated by oak rubbing against oak, by the great wooden gears meshing and separating thousands upon thousands of times. You breathe it in. The scent of old timber, of grain dust that has settled into every crack and crevice, coating the beams with a fine, pale powder that glows faintly in the lantern light, of wheat and barley and rye, all ground down to flour over the years, their essence permanently infused into the very structure of the building. And there is another smell too, fainter, but present, the smell of hot wood, of friction. Even though the wheel is not turning now, the memory of heat lingers in the timbers, the places where the axle turns in its bearings, where the gears engage, where wood meets wood with enough force to generate warmth, even smoke if the grain of the wood is not aligned properly, if the surfaces are not kept smooth and true. The miller knows these smells, can read them like a language, can tell from a single breath whether the wheel is running smoothly or whether something is amiss, whether a bearing is dry and needs tallow, whether the stones are set too close and the flour is heating, whether the hopper is running low and grain needs to be added before the stones begin to grind air. But you are not the miller. You are simply here, inside this shelter, this wooden machine, this space that exists at the boundary between the natural world and the human world, between the wild power of the river and the controlled, purposeful work of grinding. The walls around you are thick, not smooth, not finished in any decorative way. These are working walls, functional. The planks are heavy, each one 6 inches wide, 2 inches thick, fitted edge to edge with the grain running vertically. They are darkened with age, stained by moisture and smoke and time. Here and there you can see the marks of the adze, the tool that shaped them, the shallow scallops left by each swing of the blade. Between the planks, in the gaps where the wood has shrunk over the years, you can see chinking. Moss and clay pressed into the spaces to keep out the wind, to keep out the rain, to keep the interior of the mill dry and protected, even on a night like this when the storm seems intent on penetrating every structure in the valley. Above you, the ceiling beams are massive. Each one is a full tree trunk, hewn square, but still retaining the sense of its original roundness, its original strength. They span the width of the building, resting on corbels that jut out from the main posts, and they support the floor above. The floor where the grain is stored before grinding, where the sacks are hoisted by rope and pulley, where the miller's sons work, pouring the grain into the hopper when the stones are turning. The beams are dark with age, almost black in the shadows, but where the lantern light touches them, you can see the grain of the wood, the tight-growth rings of oak that grew slowly, in poor soil, in competition with other trees, and became dense and strong because of it. Everything here is strong. Overbuilt, perhaps, by modern standards, but built by people who understood that failure was not acceptable, that if the wheel broke, if the axle cracked, if the gears shattered, the village would go hungry. Because this mill serves dozens of farms, hundreds of people, it is the only mill on this stretch of the river. The only place within a day's walk where grain can be ground efficiently, where the power of water can do the work that would otherwise require the muscles of men or animals, turning hand querns for hours on end. So the beams are thick, the posts are solid. The floor you stand on is built to bear the weight of the millstones, each one weighing more than a horse, more than a cart, more than 5 strong men could lift even if they worked together. You walk slowly toward the wooden casing that houses the stones. Your footsteps are muffled by the grain dust on the floor, by the soft layer of powder that has accumulated despite the miller's efforts to keep the space clean. Because grain dust is inevitable in a mill. It hangs in the air when the stones are grinding. It settles on every surface. It works its way into the cracks between floorboards, into the weave of the sacks, into the miller's clothes and hair and lungs. It is the price of the work, the evidence of transformation, of wheat becoming flour, of hard kernels being crushed between stones, their outer hulls broken, their starchy interiors exposed and pulverized into the fine, soft powder that makes bread. You place your hand on the wooden casing. The wood is cool to the touch, smooth, worn by the hands of everyone who has ever stood here, waiting for the grinding to finish, waiting to collect their flour, to carry it home in sacks slung over shoulders or loaded onto carts. Beneath the casing, hidden from view, the stones wait. Circular, massive, 4 feet across, cut from a single piece of hard limestone or granite, quarried from the hills, transported to the mill by cart or boat, or simply rolled down the hillside by teams of men with levers and ropes and patience. The bedstone, the lower one, is fixed in place, immovable, set into the floor of the mill with such precision that it is perfectly level, perfectly flat, so that the runner stone above it will have an even gap all around as it turns. And the runner stone, the upper one, is suspended on the great vertical shaft that descends from the gears above. When the wheel turns, when the power is transmitted up through the machinery, the runner stone will spin, slowly, ponderously, with irresistible force. But for now, everything is still. You can hear the rain, always the rain, the rhythm of it, the constancy of it, drumming on the roof, streaming down the walls outside, gathering in the gutters and spilling over in places, creating small waterfalls that splash onto the ground below. And you can hear the river, always the river, the deeper sound, the roar of it, the bass note beneath the rain's percussion, the sound of water that has volume and weight and momentum, rushing past the mill in the darkness, waiting to be harnessed, The lantern flickers again. The flame bends as a draft finds its way through some crack or gap in the walls, but it does not go out. The miller knows how to place a lantern, how to position it so that it is sheltered from the worst of the drafts, but still provides enough light to work by. And in that light, you can see the texture of the space. The way the grain dust catches the glow and seems to hang in the air like fine mist. The way the shadows gather in the corners, deep and soft. The way the wooden surfaces seem to absorb the light, holding it for a moment before releasing it as a warm, burnished glow. This is a working space, but it is also a refuge. A place where the storm cannot reach you, where the rain is kept out by thick walls and a solid roof, where the wind is blocked by timber and stone, where you can stand in relative warmth, relative dryness, relative safety, while outside the world is being washed and battered and tested. The vibration in the floor continues. That deep subsonic hum, the resonance of the river's power traveling through the ground, through the stone foundations, up through the wooden frame of the building. It is constant, unchanging, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. And it is soothing. Not alarming, not threatening, but reassuring. A reminder that the building is strong, that the foundations are deep, that the mill has stood here through other storms, other floods, other nights when the river raged and the rain fell and the wind howled through the valley. And it will stand through this one. You lean against one of the main posts, the central pillar. Your shoulder rests against the smooth wood. You can feel the solidity of it, the immovability of it. This post runs from the foundation stone all the way to the ridge beam. It supports the entire structure, and it feels as permanent as the earth itself. The smell of friction, of hot wood, of grain dust, it fills your lungs with each slow breath. The sound of rain, of the river, it fills your ears with its steady rhythm. The vibration, the hum, it fills your bones with its deep frequency. And you are inside, sheltered, enclosed in this wooden machine that waits, patient and strong, for the work to begin. Section 3. The Black Water. There is a window. Small, set high in the western wall. Its glass is thick and imperfect, full of ripples and bubbles made from panes no larger than a man's hand, held together by strips of lead. Through it, you can see almost nothing, just darkness, just the faint impression of movement, of something rushing past in the night. But you know what it is. The river. You move toward the window, slowly, carefully. The floorboards creak beneath your feet with each step. The vibration seems stronger here, closer to the western wall, closer to where the wheel waits outside, where the river rushes past, where the power is concentrated. You reach the window and look out. At first, there is only darkness. The glass is wet on the outside, streaming with rain, and the faint light from the lantern behind you reflects off the inner surface, making it difficult to see beyond. But then your eyes adjust, and you see it. The water. Black water, moving fast, rushing past just a few feet from where you stand, so close you could reach out and touch it if the wall were not there, if the window were not there, if anything were not there to separate you from the raw, muscular force of the flood. It is not the river you see in daylight, not the friendly stream where children wade in summer, where women wash clothes on the smooth stones at the edge, where fishermen stand patiently with their lines, waiting for trout to bite. This is something else entirely. This is the river in flood, swollen beyond its normal bounds, dark as ink, opaque, hiding everything beneath its surface. You cannot see the bottom, cannot see the stones that normally shape the flow, cannot see anything except the surface, moving fast, covered with foam and debris, carrying branches and leaves, and who knows what else downstream toward the valley. The surface is not smooth. It is chaotic, turbulent, full of eddies and swells and sudden upwellings where the current hits some obstacle beneath and boils to the surface. The water reflects no light. It swallows light. It is a moving darkness, a liquid shadow, powerful beyond measure. And the sound of it. Even through the thick walls, even through the glass, you can hear it. That deep, continuous roar. Not loud in the way a shout is loud, but pervasive, filling the air, filling the space. A sound you feel as much as hear, resonating in your chest, in your bones, in the very structure of the building. This is the power that the mill was built to capture. This is the force that will turn the wheel, that will spin the gears, that will grind the grain. But right now, it is passing by, unharnessed, untamed, simply rushing downstream with all the weight and momentum of water that has fallen from the sky for 3 days and 3 nights, that has gathered in the high valleys, that has poured down the hillsides, that has converged into this single channel where the mill stands waiting. You press closer to the window. Your breath fogs the glass slightly. The cold from outside is seeping through, and you can feel it on your face. A chill that reminds you of the temperature of the water, of how cold the rain is, of how the storm has brought winter down from the high peaks and spread it across the valley. Through the streaming glass, you can see the river's width. It has spread beyond its normal channel. The banks are submerged. The water extends into the darkness on either side, lapping at the foundation stones of the mill, creeping up toward the level of the floor you stand on. Though the miller has built wisely, has set the main floor high enough that even the worst floods in memory have never reached it. But tonight, the water is high. Higher than usual, higher than comfortable. You can sense the urgency of the miller, the need to engage the wheel, to open the sluice, to direct some of this power into the machinery before the pressure builds too much, before the river finds some weakness in the embankments, before the flood does damage instead of useful work. Debris floats past. A branch, thick as your arm, stripped of its bark by the violence of the current. It tumbles in the water, end over end, moving downstream faster than a man could run, faster than a horse could gallop, carried by the sheer volume of water flowing through this narrow channel. And then it is gone. Disappeared into the darkness downstream. The foam on the surface of the water glows faintly, white against black. It gathers in streaks and patches, marking the turbulence, showing where the current is fastest, where the water is most disturbed. You can see the sluice gate. Just barely, a shadow against shadows, a darker rectangle set into the embankment, positioned upstream of the wheel. The gate is closed now. Heavy wooden planks held in place by an iron framework, backed by the pressure of the river, keeping the water in the main channel, preventing it from flowing onto the wheel. But soon, that gate will be opened. Soon, the water will be guided through the race, the narrow channel that leads to the wheel. And when it hits the paddles, when it pours its weight and momentum onto the wooden buckets that ring the great wheel's circumference, everything will change. The wheel will turn. The mill will come alive. But for now, the gate is closed, and the water rushes past, wasted, unused, simply flowing downstream to pour its power into the valley, into the fields, into the eventual sea. You watch it for a long moment. The black water, the foam, the debris, the relentless hypnotic motion of it, the way it never stops, never pauses, never hesitates, just flows and flows and flows, driven by gravity, by the slope of the land, by the simple physics of water seeking its lowest level. And you realize something. The river has no intention, no purpose, no desire. It simply flows because that is what water does. It falls from the sky. It gathers in streams. It rushes down hills. It finds the easiest path. It moves toward the sea. But the mill has purpose. The mill was built by human hands with human intention to intercept the river's power, to borrow it for a moment, to channel it and direct it and transform it into something useful, into the turning of gears, into the grinding of grain, into the flour that makes bread. The river does not care. The river does not notice. It will flow regardless, before the mill was built, after the mill is gone. For as long as rain falls on the high hills, the river will flow. But while the mill stands, while the wheel turns, while the stones grind, human purpose and natural power meet in this place, in this building, in this moment. And something essential happens. The wild becomes useful. The chaotic becomes controlled. The power that would simply dissipate downstream is captured, focused, transformed into work. The rain continues, drumming on the roof, streaming down the glass, adding more water to the river, more volume, more power, more force pressing against the sluice gate, waiting to be released. You step back from the window. The cold has seeped into your face and hands. You return to the warmth of the interior, to the lantern light, to the grain-scented air. But the image of the black water stays with you. The power of it, the weight of it, the relentless motion of it. And you understand, in a way you did not before, why this building is built so strong. Why the beams are so thick, why the posts are so solid, why every joint is reinforced, why every plank is fitted so carefully. Because when the wheel turns, when the river's power is channeled through these walls, through these gears, through these stones, the forces at work are enormous. The torque on the axle is measured in tons. The pressure on the gears is enough to splinter wood if it is not properly aligned. The vibration that travels through the frame is enough to shake loose any poorly fitted piece. And yet the building stands, has stood for generations, will stand for generations more if the miller and his sons maintain it properly, if they replace the worn parts, if they keep the bearings greased, if they adjust the stones and monitor the gaps and listen for the sounds that indicate stress or wear or impending failure. You turn away from the window, back to the center of the room, back to the millstones in their wooden casing, back to the hopper waiting above, back to the lantern hanging from the central post, its flame steady now, casting its warm, amber light across the dusty air. Outside, the black water rushes on. Inside, the mill waits. And the rain drums its endless rhythm on the roof, on the walls, on the world. Section 4. Opening the gate. There is movement now. The miller has arrived. You did not hear him enter, did not hear his footsteps on the stairs. But he is here now, a solid presence in the lantern light, a man shaped by this work, his shoulders broad from lifting sacks, his hands calloused from handling ropes and levers, his eyes accustomed to the dim interior of the mill, able to see in the half-light where others would stumble. He does not speak, does not acknowledge your presence. He is focused on the work, on the process that must be followed, on the sequence of actions that will transform this silent building into a working mill. He moves toward the western wall, toward a lever set into the floor near the window. It is a simple thing, a wooden beam, thick as a man's wrist, projecting up through a slot in the floorboards, angled toward the wall. The lever is connected by rods and linkages to the sluice gate outside. When the lever is pulled, the gate will lift. The water will flow through. The wheel will begin to turn. But first, the miller pauses. He listens. You can see him listening, his head tilted slightly, his eyes half closed. He is hearing the river, judging it, assessing its volume, its speed, its power, deciding how far to open the gate, how much water to allow through. Because too much and the wheel will turn too fast, the gears will strain, the stones might skip. Too little and the wheel will labor, the grinding will be slow, inefficient. The miller knows these things, has known them since he was a boy, learning from his father, who learned from his father before him. This knowledge is not written down. It is not taught from books. It is learned by listening, by watching, by feeling the vibrations in the floor, by smelling the heat in the bearings, by developing an intuition for the machinery that is as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. He reaches for the lever. His hands wrap around it, large hands, strong hands, stained with grain dust and tallow and the general grime of mill work. He plants his feet, braces himself, and pulls. The lever resists. Of course it does, because on the other end, outside in the darkness, the sluice gate is being held closed by the pressure of the river, by thousands of gallons of water pressing against the wooden planks, trying to force them open. The lever must overcome that pressure, must lift the gate against the weight of the flood. The miller pulls harder. His shoulders bunch, his back arches, his boots scrape against the floorboards as he leans into the effort, and slowly, slowly, the lever begins to move. You can hear it. A groan, deep and wooden, the sound of timber under stress, of oak fibers compressing and stretching, of iron pins bearing weight, of the entire mechanism responding to the force being applied. The lever moves, inch by inch. The miller's breath comes harder now. He is not a young man. This is not an easy task, but he does not stop, does not pause. He continues to pull steadily, consistently, until the lever has moved a full foot from its starting position. And then he stops. He sets a wooden peg into a hole drilled through the lever, locking it in place. The peg holds the gate open, holds it against the pressure of the river. The miller steps back, breathing hard, flexing his fingers, waiting. For a moment, nothing happens. The building is silent except for the rain and the river. The same sounds as before, unchanged. But then you feel it. A change in the vibration, a new frequency joining the old, a tremor that runs through the floorboards, up through your feet, into your bones. The wheel is beginning to move. Outside, in the darkness, water is flowing through the open sluice, pouring into the race, hitting the paddles, filling the wooden buckets that ring the wheel, and the weight of that water, combined with its momentum, is beginning to overcome the inertia of the wheel. The wheel is massive, 20 feet in diameter, made of oak beams and planks reinforced with iron bands. Each paddle is a bucket capable of holding 10 gallons of water, and there are 24 paddles around the circumference. When fully loaded, the wheel weighs several tons. It does not start quickly, does not leap into motion. It begins slowly, ponderously, like a sleeping giant waking. You can hear it now. A new sound, a low, rhythmic splashing, the sound of water hitting the paddles, filling the buckets, spilling out the other side as the wheel turns and empties them. A wet, heavy sound, like the heartbeat of the river itself, now captured and given rhythm. Splash, splash, splash. Slow at first, each revolution taking many seconds, but gradually, picking up speed. The wheel is finding its momentum. The water is doing its work. Gravity is pulling down on the filled buckets, turning the wheel, lifting the empty buckets on the other side back up to be filled again. And with each turn, the great axle turns. The axle that extends from the center of the wheel through the western wall into the mill. The axle is as thick as a man's torso, solid oak, hewn from a single tree, mounted on bearings that were carved from blocks of hardwood, then soaked in tallow to reduce friction. You can hear the axle now. A deep subsonic groan, the sound of wood turning on wood, of massive forces being transferred from the wheel into the building. The vibration in the floor increases, becomes more pronounced. You can feel it in your teeth now, in your jaw, in your chest cavity. The wheel is turning faster. The splashing sound is quickening. The rhythm is establishing itself, finding its natural pace. The speed at which the waters flow, the wheels' weight, and the resistance of the machinery all balance. Splash, 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 splash. Faster now, more urgent, but still not frantic, still controlled, still within the parameters the miller expected. You can see him watching, listening, his face calm, satisfied. The wheel is turning properly. The gate is opened the right amount. Everything is as it should be. The building begins to come alive. The vibration is spreading, traveling up through the posts and beams. The entire frame of the mill is resonating now with the turning of the wheel. It is not shaking, not rattling, but humming, vibrating at a frequency that seems to fill the space, fill the air, fill your body. And then you hear the gears. The first engagement. The moment when the turning axle connects with the machinery above. When the wallower, the great wooden gear mounted on the axle, begins to mesh with the spur wheel, the vertical gear that will transfer the power upward to the stones. The sound is like nothing else. A deep rhythmic thunk, 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 thunk. The sound of wooden teeth meshing together, of oak fitting into oak, of forces being transferred from one gear to another, from horizontal rotation to vertical rotation, from the wheel's slow, powerful turning to the faster, more focused turning off the runner stone above. The miller nods, satisfied. He moves to a ladder, begins to climb. He is going to the floor above, to check the stones, to adjust the gap, to prepare for the grinding to begin. You remain on the main floor, listening to the sounds, feeling the vibrations, watching the play of lantern light on the dusty beams and walls. The wheel is turning, the water is flowing, the machinery is engaged. And the watermill, silent for so long, has awakened. The rain continues to fall, the river continues to roar, but now within these walls there is purpose, there is motion, there is the beginning of work. The splashing of the wheel, the groaning of the axle, the thunking of the gears. All of it combining into a rhythm, a mechanical heartbeat, deep, steady, powerful. And beneath it all, the vibration, the hum, the resonance of the entire building responding to the power flowing through it. You close your eyes and simply feel it. The floor beneath your feet, the air around you, the sound filling your ears. The mill is alive, and it will grind through the night. Section 5. The meshing of gears. The sound changes as you stand there. The initial engagement, the first tentative meshing of the gears, has given way to something more consistent, more rhythmic. The machinery has found its pace, and now the entire system is working together, each part contributing to the whole, each rotation building on the last. You need to see the gears. You move toward the staircase, the narrow, steep steps that descend to the lower floor, to the gear floor, where the power from the wheel is transformed from the horizontal turning of the axle into the vertical turning of the grinding shaft. The steps are worn smooth. Countless feet have climbed and descended here. The wood is dark, almost black, polished by use. Each tread dips in the center where the traffic has been heaviest. You descend carefully. The vibration is stronger here, much stronger, because you are closer to the source, closer to the axle, closer to the gears. Each step down brings you nearer to the machinery, and the humming in the timbers becomes more pronounced, more insistent. At the bottom of the stairs, you step into the lower chamber. It is darker here. There is only one small window, set high in the wall, and the rain-streaked glass admits almost no light from the stormy night outside. But there is a lantern, hanging from a beam, swinging slightly with the vibration of the building. Its light is dim but sufficient. And in that light, you see the gears. The wallower is directly in front of you, mounted on the great axle that extends through the western wall from the wheel outside. The wallower is a horizontal gear, a wheel perhaps 6 feet in diameter, made entirely of wood. Not a solid wheel, but a framework of spokes radiating from the iron-banded hub, with wooden teeth, called cogs, fixed around the circumference. The cogs are not delicate things. Each one is a carefully shaped piece of hardwood, perhaps 8 inches long, 4 inches thick, driven into slots in the rim of the gear and secured with wooden wedges. They project outward like blunt fingers, spaced evenly around the wheel, 36 of them in total. And the wallower is turning. Slowly, ponderously, each rotation taking perhaps 10 seconds. You can watch the cogs pass by, one after another, each one catching the lantern light for a moment before rotating back into shadow. But the wallower is not working alone. Above it, meshing with its cogs, is the spur wheel, the great gear, the vertical gear that will carry the power upward to the stones above. The spur wheel is mounted on the vertical shaft, the upright shaft that rises from this floor through a bearing in the ceiling above, continuing to the grinding floor, where it will connect to the runner stone. And the spur wheel is larger than the wallower, perhaps 8 feet in diameter, also made of wood, also fitted with cogs around its circumference, but oriented vertically like a wagon wheel standing on edge, so that its cogs mesh with the horizontal cogs of the wallower. This is where the magic happens. This is where horizontal becomes vertical, where the slow, powerful turning of the water wheel becomes the faster, more controlled turning of the grinding stones, because the spur wheel has more cogs than the wallower. The ratio is approximately 3:2, which means that for every revolution of the wallower, the spur wheel makes 1.5 revolutions. The speed increases, the power is maintained, the torque is transferred upward. And you can see it happening. You can watch the meshing, the engagement, the moment when a cog from the wallower slides into the gap between 2 cogs on the spur wheel, pushing them, transferring its momentum, its force, its energy, before rotating away and allowing the next cog to take its place. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound is not harsh, not violent, but firm, definite. The sound of wood against wood, cushioned by the slight give in the fibers, by the decades of wear that have shaped each cog to fit perfectly with its partners. The cogs are not identical. They have worn differently. Some are slightly more polished than others. Some show the marks of repair, where the miller has replaced a broken cog with a new one, not quite matched in color or grain to the original. But they all work. They all contribute. They all play their part in the transfer of power from the wheel to the stones. You step closer, close enough to see the details, the grain of the wood in each cog, the way the surfaces have been compressed by years of pressure, the wood fibers crushed into a hard, smooth finish, the way some cogs have splits running through them, cracks that appeared over time but have not propagated far enough to cause failure, held in place by the pressure of the work, by the constant force that keeps them compressed in their sockets. The wallower continues its slow rotation. The spur wheel turns faster above it, and the sound continues. That deep, rhythmic thunking, like a heartbeat, like a drum, like the pulse of the building itself. Thunk, 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 thunk. Steady, unvarying, hypnotic. You can feel the power in the air, the sheer magnitude of the forces at work, the weight of the water hitting the wheel outside, the momentum of that weight translated into rotational energy, the energy being channeled through the axle, into the wallower, into the spur wheel, up through the vertical shaft to the grinding floor above. Thousands of pounds of force, flowing through wooden gears, through carefully shaped cogs, through bearings and shafts and joints that were crafted by hand, without power tools, without precision instruments, by craftsmen who understood wood and iron and leverage. And it works. It has worked for decades, will work for decades more. Because the materials are right: oak for strength, iron for wear surfaces, tallow for lubrication, and the knowledge passed down through generations of millers who learned to listen to the sounds, to feel the vibrations, to know when something is right and when something is beginning to fail. The lantern swings gently on its hook. The shadows move across the gears. The light catches on the edges of the cogs, highlighting them for a moment before they rotate back into darkness. And above the thunking of the gears, you can still hear the wheel. The splashing, the groaning of the axle in its bearings, the rush of water, the roar of the river beyond. All of it combining into a symphony of work, of purpose, of human ingenuity meeting natural power and creating something useful, something essential. You reach out and touch one of the support posts. The vibration travels up your arm, into your shoulder, into your chest. It is strong here, insistent. The entire building is humming with the energy flowing through it, not shaking, not unstable, but alive, resonating, like a musical instrument being played, like a great wooden drum being struck with each revolution of the wheel. And the rhythm of it is soothing. Not chaotic, not random, but steady, predictable, the kind of rhythm that lulls, that calms, that allows the mind to settle, to stop its constant racing, to simply exist in the moment, in the sound, in the vibration, in the deep mechanical pulse of the watermill at work. Thunk, 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 thunk. The gears continue their meshing. The wallower continues its slow rotation. The spur wheel continues its faster turning above, and the power continues to flow upward, to the stones, to the work of grinding, to the purpose for which this entire structure was built. You stand in the dim lantern light, listening, feeling, watching the play of shadow and light on the turning gears. And the rain continues above. The river continues outside. The storm continues its work of washing the world. While inside, the mill does its work of feeding it. Section 6. The weight of stone. You climb back up the stairs. Slowly, feeling the vibration in the handrail, hearing the sounds change as you rise from the gear floor to the grinding floor. The thunking of the gears becomes more muffled, more distant, but new sounds emerge. The sounds of the grinding floor, where the stones do their patient work. At the top of the stairs, you step back into the main chamber. The miller is here, standing beside the millstones. His hand rests on the wooden casing, feeling the vibration, monitoring the rotation through the sense of touch as much as through sight or hearing. The stones are turning now. You cannot see them. They are hidden within the circular wooden casing, the drum that contains them, that protects them, that channels the flour down into collecting bins below. But you can feel them, the massive weight of them, the slow, grinding rotation. The runner stone. The upper stone, 4 feet in diameter, 18 inches thick, cut from a single piece of hard stone. Limestone, perhaps, or granite, quarried from the hills, shaped by stonemasons who spent weeks chiseling and pecking at the surface, creating the pattern of furrows that will grab the grain and guide it toward the center as the stone turns. The stone weighs more than a ton. More than 2,000 pounds of rock, suspended on the vertical shaft that rises from the gears below, turning at perhaps 40 revolutions per minute, grinding against the bedstone beneath it with a force measured in tons. And yet, the stones must not touch. This is the critical thing, the essential thing, the thing that separates a good miller from a poor one. The stones must be close, close enough that the grain passing between them is crushed, close enough that the kernels are broken, their hulls separated, their starchy interiors pulverized into flour. But they must not touch. Because if they touch, stone grinding on stone with all that weight and speed, they will spark. They will generate heat, intense heat, enough to ignite the grain dust that hangs in the air, that coats every surface, that is as fine as powder and as flammable as tinder. If the stones touch, the mill can burn. Has burned in other mills, in other places, where the miller was careless or unlucky or simply not paying attention when the gap became too small, when the stones came together, when the sparks flew and the dust ignited, and the flour in the air exploded in a flash of heat and flame that consumed the building in minutes. So the gap must be maintained. Adjusted, monitored, checked constantly. This is called tentering, the art of setting the gap between the stones, and it is done with a mechanism as simple as it is clever. The vertical shaft that carries the runner stone is supported by a bearing, and that bearing can be raised or lowered by a screw mechanism, adjusted with a wheel that the miller can turn, raising the entire runner stone a fraction of an inch or lowering it until the gap is exactly right. Too wide and the grain passes through unground. The flour is coarse, full of unbroken kernels, useless for fine bread. Too narrow and the stones approach each other. The friction increases, the heat builds, the danger grows. The miller knows the right gap, can feel it through the vibration, can hear it in the sound of the grinding, can see it in the flour that emerges, checking its texture between his fingers, judging its fineness, its color, its quality. He is checking it now. Reaching into a small door in the side of the casing, pulling out a handful of flour. It is pale, almost white, soft as silk. He rubs it between his thumb and forefinger, feeling for any grittiness, any coarseness, any sign that the gap is not quite right. He seems satisfied, nods, releases the flour, letting it fall back into the casing, wipes his hand on his apron, returns his attention to the hopper above. The hopper, the wooden box that feeds grain into the gap between the stones. It is mounted above the runner stone, suspended from the ceiling beams, positioned so that grain poured into it from above will flow down through a narrow opening into the eye of the stone. The eye is the hole in the center of the runner stone, the opening through which the grain enters before being forced outward by centrifugal force, pushed into the gap between runner and bedstone, where it will be crushed and ground. And there is a mechanism, a simple, clever mechanism that controls the flow of grain from the hopper into the eye. It is called the damsel. You can see it, a wooden stick, a thin piece of hardwood, perhaps 2 feet long, mounted vertically just beneath the hopper's outlet. The damsel is connected to the runner stone below. It is in contact with the stone or with the iron band that reinforces the stone's center. And as the stone turns, the damsel vibrates. It shakes, rapidly, constantly, driven by the slight imperfections in the stone's rotation, by the tiny eccentricities in the shaft, by the vibrations that travel up from the gears below. And the damsel taps against the hopper. Clack, clack, clack. A fast, rhythmic tapping, like a woodpecker, like a drum stick on a drum head. A sound that is sharp and distinct, cutting through the deeper sounds of the wheel and the gears and the grinding. Clack, 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 clack. The sound is constant, unvarying. The damsel never stops tapping as long as the stone is turning, and each tap vibrates the hopper, shakes the grain inside, keeps it flowing down toward the outlet, prevents it from bridging, from clogging, from stopping. Without the damsel, the grain would settle, would compact, would stop flowing. The stones would grind air, would heat up, would eventually touch and spark. But with the damsel tapping, the grain continues to flow, steadily, consistently, feeding into the eye of the stone at exactly the rate needed to maintain proper grinding. Clack, 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 clack. The sound could be annoying, in another context, in a quiet room, in a place where silence is valued. But here, in the mill, it is just part of the symphony, part of the mechanical rhythm. the highest note in a composition that includes the deep splashing of the wheel, the thunking of the gears, the subsonic hum of the vibrating frame. And instead of being irritating, it is soothing. A metronome, a steady beat, a sound you can focus on, can count, can use to anchor your awareness, to calm your mind, to let go of thoughts and simply exist in the present moment. Clack, 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 clack. You listen to it, let it fill your ears. Let it become the only sound you hear, even though the other sounds continue. The damsel is tapping, the grain is flowing, the stones are grinding. And beneath the casing, inside the wooden drum, the runner stone turns. Slow, heavy, inexorable, its weight supported by the shaft, its furrows grabbing the grain, pulling it inward, crushing it, breaking it, transforming it from hard kernels into soft flour. The miller stands beside the stones, one hand on the casing, feeling the vibration, monitoring the work, ready to adjust the gap if needed, ready to add more grain to the hopper when it runs low, ready to stop the wheel if something goes wrong. But nothing goes wrong. The mill is running well, the sounds are right, the vibration is steady. The flour emerging from the stones is fine and white and perfect. This is what the mill was built for, this moment, this work, the transformation of grain into flour, the harnessing of the river's power to do work that would otherwise require human muscles, animal strength, hours of grinding by hand. And it is all so simple, so elegant. Water falls on hills, flows into streams. Streams converge into a river. The river is channeled onto a wheel. The wheel turns gears. The gears turn stones. The stones grind grain, and people eat bread. A chain of transformations, each one essential, each one dependent on the others, from rainfall to flour, from storm to sustenance. You stand in the lantern light, listening to the clacking of the damsel, feeling the vibration of the floor, smelling the grain dust and the hot wood and the particular scent of flour being made. Clack, 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 clack. The sound continues, steady, unchanging, a rhythm that could go on forever. That has been going on for hours. That will continue through the night as long as the river flows and the wheel turns and the stones grind. And the rain continues above, drumming on the roof, adding its voice to the symphony. While the black water rushes past outside, roaring, pouring its power into the wheel, feeding the machinery, sustaining the work. And inside, in the warmth and the dim light, the mill does what it was built to do. It grinds, and grinds, and grinds. Section 7. The Rhythm of Sleep. The hours pass. You do not count them, do not mark them. Time has become fluid here, measured not by clocks but by the rhythms of the mill, by the turning of the wheel, by the meshing of the gears, by the clacking of the damsel. Clack, 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 clack. The sound has become part of you, part of your breathing, part of your heartbeat. You no longer hear it as separate, as external. It is simply there, a constant, like the beating of your own heart, like the rhythm of your own breath. And it is soothing. Not jarring, not disturbing, but calming, a metronome that keeps perfect time, that never varies, that never falters, a sound you can trust, a sound you can rely on, a sound that tells you everything is working as it should. The miller has finished his work, has checked the stones one final time, has adjusted the gap a fraction, has added more grain to the hopper, and now he sits on a wooden stool in the corner, his back against the wall, his eyes half closed. He is not sleeping, but he is resting, trusting the mill to run itself for a while, trusting the sounds to tell him if anything goes wrong, trusting his ears and his bones to detect any change in the rhythm, any variation in the vibration, any sign that intervention is needed. And you understand why. Because the sounds are perfect, the machinery is running smoothly. The wheel is turning at exactly the right speed. The gears are meshing without strain. The stones are grinding without touching. Everything is in balance. Everything is as it should be. Clack, 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 clack. The damsel continues its tapping, endless, tireless. A wooden stick doing the simple work of keeping grain flowing, of preventing blockages, of maintaining the rhythm of grinding. And beneath that sound, the deeper sounds continue. The splashing of the wheel, slower now, more gentle, because the rain has eased slightly. The storm is passing. The river is still high, still powerful, but no longer at its peak. The urgency has passed. The crisis has been averted. The flood is manageable now. And the mill grinds on. You find yourself sitting, not sure when you sat, but you are on the floor now, your back against one of the great posts, the central pillar, solid, unmovable. The vibration travels through it into your spine, into your skull, a deep subsonic hum that seems to resonate in your bones. It is not unpleasant. It is like being held, like being rocked, like being cradled by something larger than yourself, by a building that is itself being moved by forces larger still, by the river, by the rain, by the turning of the earth and the falling of water and the ancient cycle of evaporation and precipitation that has been running since before humans existed, that will run long after humans are gone. And for a moment, you feel small. Not insignificant, but small. A small part of something vast. A small consciousness witnessing something that has been happening for millennia. Water flowing downhill. Stones grinding grain. People making bread. The lantern flame flickers, steadies. The shadows shift slightly on the walls. The grain dust hangs in the air like golden mist. Clack, 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 clack. The damsel taps on, tireless, constant, a wooden heart beating at the center of the mill, a rhythm that marks time in its own way, not hours or minutes, but taps, clacks, moments of sound separated by moments of silence so brief they barely exist. Your breathing has slowed, deepened, matching some deeper rhythm, the rhythm of the wheel perhaps, or the rhythm of the river, or some rhythm that exists beneath all the others, the rhythm of sleep itself, of rest, of letting go. The sounds are layering now, blending, the clacking and the splashing and the thunking and the humming, all of them combining into a single soundscape, a texture, an environment of sound that wraps around you like a blanket. And it is so easy to let go. To stop trying to distinguish the sounds, to stop analyzing them, to simply let them wash over you, to become part of them, to sink into them the way you might sink into deep water, into darkness, into sleep. The vibration in the floor, in the post against your back, in the air itself, it is everywhere, constant, unchanging, a deep frequency that your body recognizes, that your nervous system responds to, that tells you it is safe to rest, safe to sleep, safe to let consciousness drift away. Clack, 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 clack. The damsel taps on, will tap through the night, through the hours of darkness, through the slow turning of the stars above the clouds, through the gradual easing of the rain, through the eventual coming of dawn. But you do not need to be awake for that, do not need to witness it, do not need to stay alert. Because the mill will continue, the wheel will turn, the gears will mesh, the stones will grind, with or without your attention, with or without your awareness. This work will go on, as it has gone on for generations, as it will go on for generations more. The simple, essential work of transforming grain into flour, of harnessing water to do work, of standing at the boundary between the natural world and the human world and creating something useful from that intersection. The sounds continue. The vibration continues. The rain continues, softer now, gentler, no longer a storm but a steady rainfall that will nourish the earth, that will keep the river flowing, that will turn the wheel through the long hours of the night. And you let yourself drift. Let the sounds carry you. Let the rhythm of the damsel become the rhythm of your own thoughts. Slow, steady, regular, fading into silence, into stillness, into the deep, dreamless rest that comes from being safe and warm and surrounded by the sounds of purposeful work. Clack, 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 clack. The tapping continues. A lullaby of wood on wood, a mechanical heartbeat, a sound that promises nothing will change, that everything will continue, that the world will keep turning while you rest. And so you do. You rest. In the watermill, at the edge of the river, in the warmth of the wooden walls, in the steady vibration of the floor, in the endless rhythm of the damsel tapping, tapping, tapping. Clack, 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 clack. Section 8. The Golden Stream. The grain falls. Golden, pale amber in the lantern light, each kernel catching the glow for a fraction of a second before tumbling down into the hopper. A stream of grain, continuous, flowing like liquid even though it is solid. Thousands of individual kernels moving together, pouring from the mouth of the sack that the miller tilts carefully, steadily, controlling the flow. The kernels are wheat. Winter wheat, harvested months ago in the late summer heat, cut with sickles, bound into sheaves, stacked in the fields to dry, then gathered and threshed on the barn floor, the grain separated from the chaff, winnowed in the wind, cleaned, stored in sacks in the granary, waiting for this moment, for the transformation. Each kernel is a small miracle. Hard, dense, packed with starches and proteins, wrapped in a tough outer hull, designed by nature to protect the embryo within, to survive winter, to wait in the soil until spring, to germinate when conditions are right. But these kernels will not germinate. They will be ground, crushed between stones, broken open, their interiors exposed and pulverized, transformed from something that could grow into something that can feed. The stream of grain hits the hopper. A soft, whispering sound, like rain on leaves, like sand pouring through fingers, a sound that is almost musical, high-pitched, delicate, contrasting with the deeper sounds of the machinery, with the splashing wheel and the thunking gears and the clacking damsel. The hopper is nearly full now. The miller stops pouring, sets the sack aside. The grain in the hopper settles, levels itself, and the damsel, tapping against the hopper's base, keeps it flowing, keeps it moving down through the narrow opening, down toward the eye of the stone. You move closer, careful not to disturb the miller's work. You position yourself where you can see, where you can watch the grain entering the eye, where you can witness the moment of transformation. The eye of the runner stone is perhaps 6 inches across, a circular opening in the center of the massive stone, and into this opening the grain flows, a thin stream, controlled by the vibration of the damsel, by the tapping that shakes just enough grain loose, just enough to maintain a steady flow. The kernels disappear into the eye, into darkness, into the space between the stones, into the gap that must be maintained so precisely, so carefully, too wide and nothing happens, too narrow and disaster. But the gap is right. And what happens in that darkness is ancient, fundamental, a process that humans have been performing for 10,000 years, since the first agricultural settlements, since people learned that grain could be ground, that hard seeds could be crushed into powder, that flour could be mixed with water and baked into bread. The runner stone turns. 40 revolutions per minute, slow by modern standards, but fast enough, powerful enough. The stone weighs more than a ton, and every inch of its underside is carved with furrows, patterns, channels that radiate from the center outward like the rays of the sun. These furrows are not decorative. They are functional, essential. They grab the grain, catch it, pull it from the eye outward, toward the edge of the stone. And as the grain moves outward, it is forced down into the gap, into the space between runner and bedstone, where the pressure is greatest, where the crushing happens. The bedstone beneath is also furrowed, also carved with patterns, but the patterns are different, oriented differently, so that the furrows of the runner stone cross the furrows of the bedstone, creating intersections, creating points of maximum pressure, creating the shearing forces that break the kernels open. You cannot see this happening. It is hidden, taking place in the dark space between the stones, in a gap measured in fractions of an inch, in a space where the pressure is measured in tons per square inch, where the forces are so great that hard grain is crushed as easily as dry leaves. But you can imagine it. You can picture the kernels entering the gap, being caught between the furrows, being compressed, the outer hull cracking, the interior being squeezed out, the starchy endosperm being pulverized, ground into smaller and smaller particles, from kernels to grits to meal to flour. And you can see the result. Because at the edge of the stones, where the gap is widest, the flour emerges, white, pale, almost glowing in the lantern light, drifting out from between the stones like snow, like powder, so fine it hangs in the air for a moment before settling. The flour falls into the trough, the channel carved into the wooden casing that surrounds the stones, and from there it flows down through a wooden chute, down to the collection bin on the floor below. But before it falls, you can see it, the flour, fresh, still warm from the friction of grinding, still carrying the heat generated by stone against grain, by the compression and shearing and pulverizing. It is beautiful. Not in the way a painting is beautiful or a sunset, but in a simpler way, the beauty of purpose fulfilled, of raw material transformed into something useful, of potential realized. The stream of grain continues to flow into the eye. Golden kernels, whole and hard, disappearing into the darkness between the stones. And the stream of flour continues to flow out from the edge. White powder, soft and fine, emerging from the darkness transformed. In, out, grain, flour, input, output, the fundamental equation of the mill. The damsel taps on. Clack, 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 clack. Keeping the grain flowing, keeping the hopper vibrating, preventing any blockage, any interruption. The sound is constant, reliable, a mechanical heartbeat that drives the entire process. And the stones turn, heavy, inexorable, their weight supported by the shaft, their rotation powered by the river outside, by water that fell as rain on distant hills, that gathered in streams, that flowed down the valley, that is now being harnessed, being used, being transformed from kinetic energy into rotational energy, into mechanical work, into flour. You watch the grain falling, each kernel visible for a moment, distinct, individual, before joining the stream, before becoming part of the flow, before entering the eye and disappearing into transformation. Some kernels are larger than others, some are darker, some have the whisker-like remains of the beard still attached, the awn, the bristle that protected them in the field, but all are wheat, all are food, all will be ground. And you watch the flour emerging, each particle too small to see individually, but collectively forming a white stream, a powder, a substance so fine it feels like silk between your fingers, so light it drifts on the slightest current of air. The cycle continues, grain in, flour out, the transformation happening continuously, steadily, as long as the wheel turns, as long as the stones grind, as long as the grain flows from the hopper. This is the heart of it, the purpose, the reason the mill exists, not the wheel or the gears or the building, but this, This transformation, this conversion of grain into flour, of hard into soft, of inedible into edible, of potential into sustenance. You breathe deeply. The air is thick with grain dust, with flour particles so fine they hang suspended. They coat your throat, your lungs. You can taste them, sweet, slightly toasted, the taste of wheat, of bread, of life. And you understand something fundamental about human civilization, about the transition from hunter-gatherers to farmers, about why people settled in villages, built permanent structures, created complex societies. Because of this. Because grain could be stored, and stored grain could be ground, and ground grain could be baked, and bread could feed people through the winter, through the times when nothing grew, through the seasons of scarcity. The mill is not just a building, it is the foundation of civilization, the technology that makes settled life possible, that allows populations to grow, that frees some people from the constant work of food gathering so they can become craftsmen, artists, scholars, builders. All because grain can be ground into flour. All because water can turn a wheel. All because human ingenuity can harness natural power and direct it toward human needs. The golden stream continues, the white powder continues, and the transformation continues, kernel by kernel, particle by particle, through the long hours of the night, through the turning of the wheel, through the meshing of gears and the rotation of stones. Grain becomes flour. Wheat becomes bread. Potential becomes reality. And the mill does its ancient, essential work. Section 9. The drifting white. The flour is everywhere. Not just in the collection bin, not just in the trough where it first emerges from between the stones, but in the air, suspended, floating, drifting on currents you cannot see, moving through the space like snowfall, like fog, like something alive. You extend your hand, palm up, and watch as the flour settles on it, tiny particles, so fine they seem to materialize out of nothing. One moment your palm is clear, the next it is dusted white, coated, as if you had dipped it in powder. You bring your hand closer to your face, study the flour in the lantern light. It is not perfectly white. There are variations, tiny flecks of darker color, fragments of bran, pieces of the outer hull that were not completely separated. The flour is stone ground, not refined to the purity of modern milling, but wholesome, nutritious, full of the wheat berry's natural components. The texture is extraordinary. Soft, almost liquid. It flows between your fingers when you rub them together. Smooth, silky, without any grittiness, without any of the coarseness that would indicate the stones are set too far apart, without any of the heat that would indicate they are set too close. The temperature is warm, not hot, but noticeably warm. The flour carries the heat of its making, the friction of stone on grain, the compression, the energy that was transferred from the river, through the wheel, through the gears, through the stones, into the grain itself. And the smell. Oh, the smell. It fills the air. Thick, rich, complex, the smell of wheat, of grain, of something that was alive, that grew in sun and soil, that was nurtured by rain and time, but also the smell of transformation, of cooking, because the friction has heated the flour enough to toast it slightly, to bring out oils, to release aromatics, to create scents that are not present in raw grain. You breathe it in deeply. Toasted, yes, like bread being baked, but also earthy, like the smell of a field after harvest, like the smell of a granary, sweet too, not sugar sweet, but the subtle sweetness of starches, of complex carbohydrates, the sweetness that tells your ancient brain that this is food, this is sustenance, this is worth eating. And there is another smell beneath these, fainter, the smell of the stones themselves, of rock that has been worked hard. That has been heated and cooled and heated again thousands of times. A mineral smell. Clean, fundamental, the smell of earth, of permanence. The flour continues to drift from the chute. A steady stream, a white waterfall pouring into the wooden bin below. The bin is half full now. The flour is accumulating, building up, creating a pale mound that rises slowly, steadily as the grinding continues. And the flour that misses the bin, that drifts on air currents, settles everywhere. On the floor, on the beams, on the wooden casing of the stones, on the miller's clothes, on his hair, on his eyebrows, turning everything pale, ghostly, coating the world in white. You touch your own face, feel the flour there, on your cheeks, on your forehead, and you realize your eyelashes are heavy with it, each lash coated, weighted. You blink, feel the slight resistance. The flour is so fine it clings to everything, to skin, to hair, to fabric. It works its way into every crevice, every fold, every gap. The miller is completely dusted. His dark work clothes are pale. His beard is white with flour. He looks like he has aged decades, or like he has been working in snow. But he does not brush it off, does not try to clean himself. This is the nature of mill work. The flour is inevitable, inescapable. It is the evidence of the work being done, the proof of transformation. You walk through the space. Each step raises a small cloud of flour from the floorboards. The dust that has settled is disturbed. It lifts, swirls, catches the lantern light, each particle glowing for a moment, tiny stars, tiny points of reflected light, creating a galaxy of wheat dust in the dim air. The effect is hypnotic. You move your hand through the air, slowly. Watch the flour particles swirl in the wake of your movement. Watch them dance. Watch them spiral and eddy and eventually settle again. The air is thick with them, thick enough to see, thick enough to taste, thick enough to feel on your skin like the gentlest of caresses. This is why mills are dangerous. Not just because of the machinery, not just because of the weight of the stones or the power of the gears, but because of this, the flour dust, so fine, so pervasive, so flammable. In the right concentration, flour dust can explode. If ignited, if a spark finds the right mixture of flour and air, the explosion is not like gunpowder, not a sharp crack, but a fireball, a flash, a wave of heat and pressure that can tear a building apart, that can kill everyone inside. That has killed millers throughout history, in mills throughout the world. This is why the stones must never touch, why sparks must never be allowed, why the miller watches, listens, feels, monitors every sound, every vibration, every change in temperature, because one mistake, one moment of inattention, one spark in this dust-filled air, and the mill could be gone. But there are no sparks tonight. The stones are properly set, the gap is right, the grinding is smooth. The only heat is the gentle warmth of friction, not enough to ignite, not enough to danger, just enough to toast the flour slightly, to bring out its flavors, to warm it. You return to the collection bin, watch the flour accumulating. The mound is growing, slowly but steadily. Each minute adds another layer, another coating, building up like a sand dune, like snow drifting against a wall, soft, formless, beautiful in its simplicity. You reach down, scoop up a handful, let it flow through your fingers, watch it fall, creating tiny clouds as it lands. The flour is so fine it behaves almost like a liquid, almost like water. It pours, it flows, it finds its level. But it is dry, completely dry, each particle separate, distinct, even though they seem to flow together. This is what bread is made from. This powder, this dust, this transformation of grain, mixed with water it will form dough, elastic, stretchy, able to trap the gases produced by yeast, able to rise, to expand, to become light and airy and full of holes. And when baked, that dough will become bread. brown and crusty on the outside, soft and warm on the inside, the staple food, the foundation of diet, the thing that has kept humanity alive through countless generations, through famines and wars and harsh winters, through times of plenty and times of scarcity. All beginning here, with grain entering the eye of a stone, with flour emerging from the gap, with dust settling in the air. The lantern light catches the floating particles, creates beams, visible rays of light made visible by the flour dust, like sunlight through a forest canopy, like stage lights in a theater. The beams shift as the lantern sways slightly, as the building vibrates, as the air moves. And you stand in those beams, feeling the flour settle on you, coating you, becoming part of you, the dust on your skin, in your hair, on your clothes, the taste of it on your tongue, the smell of it in your nose, the sight of it filling the air. You are inside the transformation, part of it, witnessing it, experiencing it, not just watching grain become flour, but being present in the space where it happens, where ancient technology and natural power combine to create something essential, something human, something that separates us from every other species. Because we grind grain, we make flour, we bake bread, and in doing so we survive, we thrive, we build civilizations. All from this white powder, this drift of dust, this transformation happening in the darkness between two stones, powered by water falling from the sky, captured by wood and channeled by human ingenuity. The flour continues to fall, the mound continues to grow, and the air continues to fill with the fine, white, floating evidence of work being done, of purpose being fulfilled, of the mill doing what it was built to do. Section 10. The Endless Cycle. Water pushes wheel. This is where it begins, always begins, must begin, with water, with rain that fell on the high hills, with drops that gathered into rivulets, with rivulets that joined into streams, with streams that flowed into the river, with the river that now rushes past the mill, dark and powerful and full of momentum. The water hits the paddles. Each paddle is a wooden bucket, oak planks fitted together, sealed with pitch, mounted around the circumference of the great wheel, 24 paddles in total. And when the sluice gate is opened, when the water is guided through the race, it pours onto these paddles, fills them, weighs them down. And gravity pulls on the water in the paddles, pulls the filled paddles down, down toward the earth, down with irresistible force. And as the filled paddles descend, the wheel must turn, must rotate, must move to allow the descent. And as it turns, the paddles empty, spill their water, release it back to the river, return it to the flow downstream. Each paddle empties at the bottom of the rotation, spills its burden, becomes light again, ready to be lifted back up the other side of the wheel, ready to be filled again at the top. Water pushes wheel. Over and over, continuously, as long as the sluice is open. As long as the river flows, the cycle repeats. Fill, descend, empty, rise, fill again, a circular motion, perpetual, self-sustaining, requiring no fuel, no effort, just water and gravity in the turning wheel. Wheel turns axle. The wheel is mounted on an axle, a massive wooden shaft, oak, hewn from a single tree, as thick as a man's torso, extending through the center of the wheel, through bearings, into the mill. And when the wheel turns, the axle must turn with it, must rotate, because it is the axle that carries the power inward. That brings the river's energy into the building. That makes it available for work. The axle turns slowly, perhaps 5 revolutions per minute, because the wheel is large, 20 feet in diameter. 1 revolution moves the rim more than 60 feet. Plenty of distance for paddles to fill and empty. Plenty of time for water to pour and spill and transfer its weight into rotational force. Axle turns wallower. The wallower is mounted on the axle, fixed to it with iron bands and wooden keys. The wallower is a gear, horizontal, its wooden cogs projecting upward and downward from the rim, 36 cogs in total, carefully shaped, carefully positioned, each one designed to mesh with the gear above. And when the axle turns, the wallower turns, must turn. They are one piece, one assembly. The axle provides the power. The wallower transmits it upward. Wallower turns, spur wheel. The spur wheel is vertical, 8 feet in diameter, mounted on the vertical shaft, the upright shaft that rises from the gear floor to the grinding floor above. The spur wheel's cogs mesh with the wallower's cogs. They engage, intermesh, lock together for a moment before separating. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound of wooden teeth meeting, of forces being transferred, of horizontal rotation becoming vertical rotation, of power being redirected, reoriented, sent upward. And because the spur wheel has more cogs than the wallower, it turns faster. 1.5 rotations for every rotation of the wallower. The speed increases. The power is maintained. The transformation continues. Spur wheel turns vertical shaft. The shaft is iron-reinforced oak, running from the gear floor through a bearing in the ceiling, through the grinding floor, up to where it connects to the runner stone. The shaft is perhaps 8 inches in diameter, solid, strong, capable of transmitting tons of torque without twisting, without breaking. And when the spur wheel turns, the shaft turns, must turn. They are fixed together, wedged, keyed. The shaft carries the rotation upward, brings it to where it is needed, to where the work will be done. Vertical shaft turns runner stone. The runner stone is mounted on top of the vertical shaft, or rather, the shaft passes through the center of the stone, through the eye, and iron fixings, bars and bands, connect the shaft to the stone, lock them together, make them one piece. So when the shaft turns, the stone turns, must turn. The massive weight of the stone, more than a ton of carved rock, suspended on the shaft, rotating, spinning, grinding. Runner stone grinds grain. This is the purpose, the endpoint, the reason for all the machinery. The stone turns against the bedstone beneath. The gap between them is measured in fractions of an inch, and into that gap grain flows from the hopper above, through the eye, out along the furrows. And the grain is caught, trapped between the turning runner and the stationary bed, compressed, sheared, broken, the hard outer hull cracks, the soft interior is exposed, crushed, pulverized, reduced to finer and finer particles, from kernels to grits to meal to flour. Grain becomes flour. The transformation is complete. The cycle has reached its conclusion. Water that pushed the wheel has become flour that will make bread. Energy that was potential in the elevated river has become work in the grinding stones. Power that was diffuse in the flowing current has become focused in the rotating stone. And the flour emerges, warm, white, fine, drifting from between the stones, falling into the collection bin, accumulating, building, becoming the product, the result, the purpose. But the cycle does not end. Because even as flour emerges, more grain enters, more kernels flow into the hopper, more wheat pours into the eye, more grinding happens. The process is continuous, unending, as long as grain is available, as long as the river flows. Water pushes wheel. And it begins again. The same cycle, the same sequence. Water to wheel to axle to wallower to spur wheel to shaft to stone to grain to flour. Over and over. Continuous. Hypnotic. The water never stops pushing. The wheel never stops turning. The gears never stop meshing. The stones never stop grinding. Each part of the cycle depends on the others. Each part enables the others. Remove any one element and the entire system fails. The wheel needs the water. The axle needs the wheel. The gears need the axle, the shaft needs the gears, the stone needs the shaft, the grinding needs the stone. It is a chain of dependencies, a sequence of transformations, each one essential, each one contributing, each one part of the whole. And you can see it all in your mind, can picture the entire system, the water hitting the paddles, the wheel rotating, the axle turning inside its bearings, the wallower's cogs rising and falling, the spur wheel's teeth engaging and disengaging, the vertical shaft spinning, the runner stone grinding its slow, heavy circle. All of it happening simultaneously, all of it connected, all of it working together to achieve one simple purpose: to transform grain into flour, to make bread possible, to feed people. This is the meditation of the mill, the rhythm of it, the cycle of it, the endless repetition that is not boring but soothing, not monotonous but reassuring, because it is reliable, predictable, constant. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. And then it repeats. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. Again. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. The words become a rhythm, a chant, a mantra. You can say them silently to yourself, can match them to your breathing, can let them fill your mind, can let them crowd out all other thoughts, all worries, all anxieties, all the noise of daily life. Just the cycle, just the sequence, just the simple, ancient process of harnessing water to grind grain. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. You can feel it happening, can sense it even with your eyes closed. The vibration in the floor tells you the wheel is turning. The thunking of the gears tells you the power is being transmitted. The clacking of the damsel tells you the grain is flowing. The warmth of the flour tells you the grinding is happening. All your senses confirm it. The cycle is running. The mill is working. The transformation is occurring. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. And there is something deeply satisfying about this, about understanding a system completely, about seeing how each part connects to the next, about witnessing cause and effect on a mechanical level, about knowing that if A happens, then B must happen, then C must happen, all the way through to Z. The mill has no mysteries, no hidden processes, no electronic circuits or computer code, just wood and stone and iron and water, just gravity and rotation and friction, just simple machines working together, lever and wheel and gear, the fundamental tools of human technology. And yet from these simple elements, something essential is created: flour, food, life. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. The cycle continues, will continue through the night, through the hours of darkness, through the slow passage of time, grinding bag after bag of grain, producing sack after sack of flour, doing the work that feeds the village, that makes bread possible, that sustains life. And you are here, witnessing it, part of it, your breathing synchronized with the rhythm, your heartbeat matching the thunking of the gears, your consciousness merging with the cycle, becoming the cycle. Water pushes wheel, wheel turns axle, axle turns wallower, wallower turns spur wheel turns shaft, shaft turns stone, stone grinds grain, grain becomes flour. Again and again and again. Endless, eternal. The meditation of the mill. Section 11, the living frame. The building breathes. Not literally, not in the way a creature breathes, but it moves, flexes, responds to the forces flowing through it. The timbers expand and contract, the joints settle and shift. The entire frame participates in the work being done, becomes part of the machinery. You can feel it when you touch the walls. The planks are vibrating, humming with a frequency you feel more than hear, a deep resonance that travels through the wood, through the grain of the oak, through the fibers that grew in the hillside forest decades ago, through the cells that drew water from the soil and carbon from the air and built themselves into tree. That tree is part of the mill now, cut, shaped, joined to other trees, other pieces of former forest, all working together, all contributing their strength, their flexibility, their durability. And they are alive in a sense, not growing, not changing, but alive with motion, with vibration, with the constant movement of the machinery they support. The floor beneath your feet is not still. It rises and falls, minutely, imperceptibly to the eye, but definitely, your body senses it, your inner ear detects it, the slight flexing of the floorboards as the wheel turns, as weight shifts through the gears, as the runner stone completes each rotation. It is like standing on the deck of a ship, a gentle rocking, a subtle movement that becomes part of your awareness, part of your experience of the space, not disturbing, not unsettling, but present, constant, a reminder that you are inside a working machine, inside a structure that is bearing enormous forces. The main posts are moving too. The vertical beams that support the roof, that carry the weight of the upper floors, that anchor the entire frame, they are compressing, expanding, twisting slightly with each cycle of the machinery. You place your hand on the central post, the great pillar that rises from foundation to roof peak. Close your eyes, feel. There, a pulse, a rhythm. The post is transmitting vibration from below, from the foundation stones where the building's weight rests on the earth. The vibration travels up through the stone, into the wooden frame, up through this post, all the way to the roof above. And the post is warm, not hot, but warmer than the surrounding air, because it is working. The wood fibers are being compressed and released, thousands of times per hour, and that movement generates heat, friction at the molecular level, the wood warming itself through its own flexing. You can smell it, that hot wood smell, the scent of oak under stress, being worked, being used, fulfilling its purpose, not the sharp smell of burning, but the deeper smell of wood being pushed to its limits, being asked to bear weight, to transmit force, to participate in work. Above you, the ceiling beams are creaking. Soft sounds, not alarming, not the crack of breaking wood, but the gentle groan of timber settling, adjusting, finding equilibrium under changing loads. As the wheel turns, weight shifts through the machinery, and that shifting weight is transmitted through the frame, through the beams, through the joints. The mortise and tenon connections, where one beam fits into another, where wooden pegs hold them together. These joints are moving, slightly, the wood compressing in the mortise, expanding, allowing minute movement while still maintaining the overall structure. This is the genius of timber framing. The joints are not rigid, not welded or bolted tight, but slightly flexible, allowing the frame to move, to respond, to distribute forces, to work as a system rather than as a collection of rigid parts. And that flexibility is what allows the building to withstand the forces of the machinery, to absorb the vibration, to channel it, to spread it throughout the frame so that no single point bears too much stress, so that no single piece fails under the load. The walls are moving too, breathing. The planks that form the outer skin of the building, they expand with the vibration, contract, the chinking between them. The moss and clay that fills the gaps, it compresses, releases, compresses, releases. And the entire building rocks, gently, rhythmically, in time with the wheel, in time with the gears, like a cradle being rocked by an invisible hand, like a boat at anchor swaying with the current. You can feel it most when you stand still, when you stop moving and simply let your body sense the building's motion. The gentle sway, the subtle rocking, back and forth, side to side, in a pattern that matches the turning of the wheel, the meshing of the gears, the rotation of the stones. It is hypnotic, soothing, like being held, like being rocked to sleep. Your body recognizes the rhythm, responds to it. Your muscles relax, your breathing slows, your mind quiets. Because this is a rhythm as old as humanity, the rhythm of being rocked, of being held, of being cradled. Mothers have rocked babies to sleep for millennia. Ships have rocked sailors for as long as humans have gone to sea. And now this building rocks you, this wooden machine, this structure dedicated to work. But gentle work, patient work, the steady grinding of grain, not violent, not harsh, just consistent, reliable, like the beating of a heart, like the rhythm of breathing, like the fundamental patterns of life itself. You lean against the wall, let it support you. Feel the vibration through your shoulder, through your back. The wall is solid, strong, but alive with movement, with the energy flowing through the building, with the work being done. And you realize that the mill is not separate from the machinery. The mill is the machinery. The building and the gears and the stones and the wheel are all one system, all working together. The timbers are not just housing the gears. They are part of the mechanism, bearing loads, transmitting forces, participating in the transformation of grain into flour. This is why the building is so strong, so heavily built, not just to shelter the machinery, but to be part of it, to work with it, to channel forces that would destroy a lighter structure. The roof above is moving too, the shingles shifting slightly, the rafters flexing. The ridge beam, the great horizontal timber at the peak of the roof, is bearing the weight of the entire roof structure, and it flexes, bends, springs back with each cycle of the machinery. You can hear it sometimes, a soft creaking, like the hull of a wooden ship working in the waves, the sound of wood under load, not failing, but working, doing what it was designed to do. And all these movements, all these vibrations, all these small flexings and rocky NGS and swayings, they combine into one overall motion, one rhythm, one breathing of the building. The mill inhales, the wheel descends, the gears engage, the stone grinds. The mill exhales, the wheel rises, the gears disengage, the stone completes its rotation. Over and over, breathing, living, working. And you are inside it, inside this living machine, this breathing building, this creature of wood and stone and iron that has one purpose, one function, to grind grain, to make flour, to feed people. And it rocks you, gently, constantly, like a mother rocking a child, like the earth itself rocking on its axis, like the fundamental motion of the universe. Everything in cycles, everything in rhythm, everything connected to everything else. The vibration is in your bones now, has become part of you. You cannot tell where the building's motion ends and your own begins. You are synchronized, matched, moving together, breathing together. The mill rocks, you rock, the grain grinds, the flour falls, the wheel turns, the river flows. And everything is connected. Everything is one rhythm, one cycle, one endless pattern of motion and purpose and work. The living frame cradles you, holds you, rocks you toward sleep, toward rest, toward the deep peace that comes from being in perfect harmony with your surroundings, with the rhythm of work, with the ancient patterns of transformation. And you let the building hold you, let the vibration fill you, let the rocking soothe you, let the mill do its work while you rest in its embrace. Section 12. The Easing Storm. Something is changing. The sound is different, softer, the drumming on the roof, the rain that has been constant for hours, for the entire night. It is easing. Not stopping, not yet, but diminishing, the heavy downpour becoming lighter, the relentless hammering becoming a gentler pattering. The storm is passing, moving down the valley, leaving this place behind. You listen, the change is gradual, not sudden. The rain does not stop all at once. But moment by moment, minute by minute, the volume decreases, the intensity lessens, the storm's fury is spent. And with the easing rain, the river changes too. The roar is still there, still present, but less urgent, less overwhelming. The flood is beginning to subside. The water level is dropping, not dramatically, not quickly, but steadily. The peak has passed. The crisis is over. The miller knows. You can see it in his posture, in the way he moves toward the western wall, toward the lever that controls the sluice gate. He has been monitoring the river, listening to it, judging its flow, and he has decided it is time to reduce the water coming through, time to slow the wheel. He reaches for the lever, grasps it, and pushes, not pulls, pushes to close the gate slightly, to restrict the flow, to reduce the power reaching the wheel. The lever resists, as always. The pressure of water on the gate makes movement difficult, but the miller is strong, experienced. He leans into the effort, pushes steadily, and the lever moves. Inch by inch, the gate lowering, the opening narrowing, less water flowing through to the wheel. And you can hear the effect immediately. The splashing changes, the rhythm slows, the wheel is receiving less water, less weight in each paddle, less force driving the rotation. It must slow down, must match the reduced flow. Splash, splash, splash. The gaps between splashes lengthening, the wheel finding its new pace, still turning, still working, but slower, more sedately, the urgency gone. And with the slowing wheel, everything downstream slows too. The axle turns slower, the wallower rotates more ponderously, the spur wheel reduces its speed, the vertical shaft spins less rapidly, the runner stone grinds more gently. The entire system is synchronizing to the new pace, matching the reduced water flow, working within the new parameters. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The gears meshing less frequently, the pauses between engagements longer, the rhythm stretching out, becoming more relaxed, more peaceful. Even the damsel changes its tapping. Clack, clack, clack. Still constant, still reliable, but slower. The reduced rotation of the stone means reduced vibration, less shaking of the hopper, less urgent tapping. The entire acoustic environment of the mill is shifting. The sounds are becoming gentler, less forceful. The building is relaxing, easing, like an athlete cooling down after hard effort, like a runner slowing to a walk after a race. The vibration in the floor decreases, not disappearing, but lessening, the hum becoming quieter, the resonance becoming subtler. Your feet still feel it, your bones still sense it, but it is no longer insistent, no longer demanding attention. You move to the window, look out at the river. The darkness is beginning to lift, not yet dawn, but the storm clouds are breaking, thinning. Somewhere above them, the sky is lightening. The first hints of morning are approaching. And in that faint, growing light, You can see the river more clearly. The water level is lower. The banks are beginning to emerge. The flood is receding. The water that was lapping at the foundation stones is pulling back, returning to the normal channel. The crisis has passed. The surface is less chaotic too, fewer eddies, less turbulence. The river is settling, calming, still flowing fast, still powerful, but not wild, not out of control, just a river in spate, high but manageable, strong but not dangerous. And the rain has almost stopped. Just a light drizzle now, mist more than rain, moisture in the air rather than drops falling. The kind of rain that barely makes sound, that refreshes rather than batters, that nourishes rather than floods. The storm is over. The night's work is nearly done. The flood has been survived. The river has been harnessed. The grain has been ground. And now, as dawn approaches, everything is settling, easing, returning to normal. The miller adjusts the gate one more time, reduces the flow further. The wheel slows more. The splashing becomes even more gentle. The machinery continues, but at a pace that is almost leisurely, almost restful. And the building responds. The creaking diminishes. The vibration lessens. The rocking becomes barely perceptible. The mill is relaxing, its timbers settling, its joints easing. After hours of hard work, of bearing enormous forces, the frame is being allowed to rest. Not completely, not yet. The wheel still turns, the stones still grind. There is still grain in the hopper, still flour to be made. But the intensity is gone, the urgency is past. The work continues, but gently, patiently. You breathe deeply. The air is still thick with flour dust, still warm from the friction of grinding, but it feels different, calmer, more peaceful. The sharp edge of effort has been blunted, softened. Outside, the world is quiet. The rain has stopped. The river still flows, but its roar has become a murmur, a background sound rather than a presence. The night is ending. The storm is gone, and the valley is settling into the stillness that comes before dawn. The hour when the night shift ends, when the work of darkness gives way to the work of daylight, when those who have labored through the dark hours can finally rest. The miller checks the stones one last time, reaches into the casing, tests the flour, nods, satisfied. The quality is good. The grinding is complete. He moves to the hopper. It is nearly empty. The grain has been processed. The sacks have been transformed into flour. He reaches for the lever again, and this time he pushes it fully, closing the gate completely, cutting off the flow of water to the wheel. The splashing stops. The wheel slows, coasts, its momentum carrying it through several more rotations. But with no new water to drive it, it must eventually stop, must come to rest. You can hear it winding down, feel it, the thunking of the gears becoming irregular, the meshing happening at longer intervals, the system running out of energy, running down. The vibration fades, the hum diminishes, the building's motion slows, stops. And finally, silence. Section 13. The deep, quiet asterisk. The gears stop. The runner stone completes one last revolution, slow, almost reluctant, and then settles, becomes still, the weight of it resting on the shaft, the gap between runner and bedstone maintained but no longer moving, no longer grinding. The rumble fades. All the sounds that have filled the mill for hours, the splashing and the thunking and the clacking, they fade, diminish, disappear into silence. And the silence is extraordinary. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of quiet, deep, heavy, profound. After hours of mechanical noise, of constant rhythm, of unending vibration, the stillness is almost tangible, almost physical, like a weight settling over everything. Your ears ring slightly. Adjusted to the noise, they now search for it, create phantom sounds in the absence of real ones. But gradually, the ringing fades, and true quiet emerges. You can hear the river, still flowing outside, but quietly now, a gentle rushing, a background murmur, the sound of water moving over stones, natural, organic, not the roar of flood but the whisper of current. And you can hear water dripping. From the wheel, from the paddles, each bucket still half full from when the flow was cut off. And now gravity is pulling that water down, down through cracks in the wood, down from the paddles, down to rejoin the river below. Drip, drip, drip. Slow, irregular, each drop falling from a different paddle, from a different point on the wheel, creating a random pattern, not rhythmic, not mechanical, but natural, chaotic. The sound of water finding its way back to water. It is peaceful, soothing, like rain dripping from leaves after a storm, like the last moments of a shower when the clouds have passed and only remnants fall. Cleaning, refreshing, washing away. Inside the mill, nothing moves. The dust is settling. The flour particles that have been suspended in the air, kept aloft by the vibration, by the movement, by the constant activity. They are falling now, drifting down, coating everything with a fresh layer of white. You watch them fall, tiny specks, barely visible in the lantern light, but falling, definitely falling, like the gentlest snow, like ash from a distant fire, silent, slow, inevitable. They settle on the floor, on the beams, on the wooden casing of the stones, on your shoulders, on your hair, adding to the coating that is already there, making everything a little paler, a little more ghostly, a little more ethereal. The silence deepens. Your own breathing is loud now, each inhale, each exhale, audible in the quiet. You can hear your heartbeat, feel it, the pulse in your ears, in your chest, the only rhythm remaining, the only movement, your own living body in the still space. And the stillness is not empty, not void. It is full, full of the memory of sound, of work, of purpose. The mill is silent, but the silence is heavy with what has just occurred, with the transformation that has taken place, with the grain that became flour, with the work that was done. You can feel it, the completion, the satisfaction, the job finished, the night's work concluded, the grain ground, the flour made, the village's needs met for another day. The miller moves slowly now, no urgency, no rush. He walks to the collection bin, looks at the flour accumulated there, pale mound in the lantern light. He reaches down, scoops a handful, lets it flow through his fingers, watching it fall, checking it one last time. The texture, the color, the quality. He nods, satisfied. The grinding was good, the flour is fine, the work was successful. He wipes his hands on his apron, not cleaning them. The flour is too pervasive for that, but a gesture, a completion, a marking of the transition from work to rest. And in the silence, small sounds emerge, sounds that were hidden before, masked by the machinery, but present now. The building settling, tiny creaks, barely audible, the timbers cooling, contracting, releasing the stresses that were held during the grinding, the wood relaxing, easing, finding its resting state. The dripping continues, but slower now. The paddles are nearly empty. Soon that sound too will stop, and only the river will remain, the constant river, flowing past, unconcerned, unharnessed once more, simply flowing toward the valley, toward the sea. You move through the space. Your footsteps are loud. Each step on the floorboard sounds like a drum in the quiet. You move more carefully, more softly, trying not to disturb the peace, the stillness that has settled over everything. The lantern still burns, its flame steady now, no longer flickering with vibration, just burning, constant, warm, casting its gentle light over the interior, over the dusted surfaces, over the still machinery, over the peaceful space. And the quiet is comforting, Not lonely, not isolating, but peaceful, restorative, the kind of silence that allows rest, that allows recovery, that allows the mind to slow, to stop, to simply exist without processing, without analyzing, without working. The night's labor is done. The transformation is complete. And now, in the deep quiet that follows work, there is only rest, only peace, only the gentle dripping of water and the distant murmur of the river and the soft settling of flower dust in still air. This is the silence that follows purpose, the quiet that comes after effort, the peace that rewards work completed, not empty, not void, but full of completion, full of satisfaction, full of the deep calm that comes from knowing that what needed to be done has been done well. The mill is silent, but it is a living silence, a presence, a peace that fills the space more completely than sound ever could. Section 14. The weight of harvest. The miller moves to a stack of empty sacks, burlap, rough and heavy, each one folded neatly, stacked against the northern wall. He selects one, shakes it open. The fabric rustles, loud in the silence, breaks the spell of quiet. But it is time to collect the flour, time to fill the sacks, time to prepare the product for collection, for distribution, for use. He carries the sack to the collection bin, positions it beneath the chute, and begins to shovel, not with a metal shovel, too harsh, too likely to scrape and spark, but with a wooden scoop, smooth, worn, shaped by years of use. He scoops flour from the bin, lifts it, pours it into the sack. The flour flows like liquid, pours like water, but silent, making almost no sound as it accumulates in the burlap, just the soft whisper of powder on fabric, of particles settling, of dust finding rest. You watch the sack fill, slowly, steadily. Each scoop adds perhaps 2 pounds. The sack will hold 50, so scoop after scoop, patient work, methodical. The miller's movements are practiced, efficient, no wasted motion, no spilled flour. The sack begins to bulge, to take shape, to transform from a flat piece of fabric into a full, rounded form, the flour at the bottom compressing slightly, bearing the weight of the flour above, creating a firm base, a stable foundation. More scoops, more flour, the sack filling, growing, becoming heavy. When it is nearly full, the miller stops, sets down the scoop, grasps the neck of the sack, shakes it, settles the flour, makes room for a few more scoops, a few more pounds, maximizing the fill, using the space efficiently. And then it is full, 50 pounds of flour, the work of grinding perhaps 70 pounds of grain. The loss is the bran, the hulls, the parts that were separated and fell away during grinding, useful still, for animal feed, for compost, but not flour, not bread. The miller ties the sack, a simple knot, efficient, secure. The twine is rough hemp, strong, designed to hold weight, to keep the sack closed during transport, during storage. He lifts the sack. The weight is significant, 50 pounds, half a hundredweight, a substantial load, but the miller is strong. His shoulders are broad, his back is straight. He has lifted thousands of sacks in his life. This is just one more. He carries it to the stacking area, places it carefully, upright at first, then tips it to lie on its side, stable, secure, ready to be loaded onto a cart, ready to be distributed to those who brought grain, who are waiting for their flour, who will take it home and bake it into bread. And he returns to the bin, selects another sack, opens it, positions it, begins scooping again. The process repeats: scoop, pour, fill, settle, tie, lift, stack. Rhythmic, meditative, different from the rhythm of grinding, but a rhythm nonetheless, the rhythm of completion, of harvest, of collecting the fruits of labor. You move closer, reach out, touch one of the filled sacks. The burlap is rough under your fingers, coarse, but the sack is warm, noticeably warm. The flour inside still carries the heat of grinding, the friction of stone on grain, the energy that was transferred from water to wheel to gears to stones to grain. That energy is in the flour now, as heat, as warmth, and it radiates through the burlap, into your hand, a gentle warmth, comforting, like touching something alive, something that has just been created. You press your palm against the sack, feel the firmness of it, the density. 50 pounds of flour compressed into a space perhaps 18 inches tall, 12 inches across. Packed tight, solid, heavy. This is sustenance. This is food. This sack will make bread for a family, for weeks, perhaps months if used carefully, mixed with water and salt and yeast, kneaded into dough, allowed to rise, baked in an oven, transformed again from flour into bread. Another transformation, another step in the chain, from grain to flour to dough to bread, each step essential, each step requiring knowledge, skill, effort. The miller fills another sack, and another. The stack grows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sacks, 250 pounds of flour, the night's production, the result of hours of grinding, of the wheel turning, of the stones crushing, of the river's power being harnessed and directed and used. Each sack represents work, represents energy, represents the transformation of natural force into human sustenance, represents the collaboration between water and wood and stone and grain and human ingenuity. You lift one of the sacks, or try to. It is heavy, heavier than you expected. You manage to raise it a few inches, feel the weight of it, the substance of it. This is not abstract, not theoretical. This is real, tangible. This is food. This is survival. You set it down carefully, respectfully, aware of what it represents, of the effort that went into creating it, of the lives that will be sustained by it. The miller finishes filling the last sack, ties it, lifts it, adds it to the stack. 6 sacks total, 300 pounds, a good night's work, a substantial quantity. He steps back, surveys the stack, nods, satisfied. The work is done. The grain has been ground. The flour has been collected. The sacks are ready. And there is satisfaction in completion, in finishing a job, in seeing the tangible results of effort, in knowing that what needed to be done has been accomplished, that the grain brought to the mill has been transformed, that the village will eat, that hunger will be held at bay for another week, another month. This is the purpose of the mill, not the machinery, not the building, but these sacks, this flour, this transformation of grain into food, everything else. The wheel and the gears and the stones, they are just means, tools, mechanisms. But these sacks, this is the end, the goal, the reason, the purpose. The miller wipes his brow, leaving a streak of flour across his forehead. He is tired. It has been a long night, hours of monitoring, of adjusting, of ensuring the grinding went smoothly, of maintaining the machinery, of keeping everything running properly. But he is satisfied. The work was good. The flour is fine. The sacks are full. The job is complete. And now rest. Finally, after the long night, after the storm, after the grinding, now rest. Section 15. The Miller's Rest. There is a corner, in the eastern side of the grinding floor, away from the stones, away from the bins, where empty sacks are piled, not stacked neatly like the full ones, but heaped, tumbled, creating a soft mound, a makeshift bed. The miller moves toward it, slowly, his steps heavy, weary, the accumulated fatigue of the long night settling into his bones, into his muscles. He has been standing for hours, monitoring, working, bearing the responsibility of the mill, of the grinding, of the village's food supply. But now the work is done, the grain is ground, the flour is sacked, the machinery is still, and he can rest. He reaches the pile of sacks, arranges a few, creates a more level surface, not comfortable in any luxurious sense, but adequate, sufficient, a place to lie down, to take the weight off his feet, to close his eyes. He sits first, on the edge of the pile, removes his boots, heavy work boots, caked with flour and grain dust. He sets them aside, flexes his feet, his toes, feels the relief of freedom from the constricting leather. And then he lies back, slowly, carefully, his body settling into the burlap, the empty sacks compressing beneath his weight, molding to his form, not soft, but not hard either, just supportive, accepting. He positions his arms, one behind his head, the other across his chest, his legs straight, his body finding its resting posture. And he sighs, a deep, long exhalation, the release of tension, of responsibility, of effort, the sigh of a man who has completed his work and can finally rest. You move to your own resting place, not far from the miller, another pile of sacks, smaller, but sufficient for your needs. You arrange them as he did, creating a surface, a bed. And you lie down. The burlap is rough against your skin, against your clothes, but not uncomfortable, just textured, present, grounding. You can feel each fold, each wrinkle, each point of contact between fabric and body. The sacks still carry warmth, residual heat from the flour that was in them before they were emptied, heat that has been absorbed by the fabric, that now radiates gently into your back, into your shoulders, into your legs. It is soothing, like a warm bath, like the sun on your skin after emerging from cold water. Not intense heat, but gentle warmth, comfort. You close your eyes. The darkness behind your eyelids is complete, deep, restful. Your eyes have been working hard, straining in the dim lantern light, watching the machinery, the grain, the flour, and now they can rest, can stop focusing, can simply be closed, protected, safe. You can still smell the flour. It is everywhere, in the air, on your clothes, on your skin, in your hair, the sweet, toasted smell of it, the earthiness, the richness. It fills your nose with each breath, not overwhelming, not unpleasant, just present, pervasive, the smell of the mill, of work, of transformation. And you can hear the river, outside, beyond the walls, still flowing, always flowing, the gentle rushing, the constant movement, water toward the sea, eternal, unchanging in its changing, always different water, but always the same river. The sound is hypnotic, soothing, like white noise, like the ocean, like rain, a sound that masks other sounds. That creates a blanket of auditory comfort, that allows the mind to let go, to stop listening for threats, for changes, for anything requiring attention. Just the river, flowing, constant, peaceful. Your breathing slows, deepens, matching the rhythm of the river perhaps, or creating its own rhythm. Slow in, slow out, the natural pace of rest, of sleep, of the body beginning its work of recovery, of restoration. The warmth from the sack seeps deeper, into your muscles, into your bones, relaxing them, releasing the tension, the holding, the effort of standing, of watching, of being present through the long night. Your muscles soften, lengthen, let go. The weight of your body sinks into the burlap, supported, held, cradled by the rough fabric and the flour-dusted sacks. You can feel the vibration's absence, the stillness, after hours of constant movement, of the building humming, of the floor vibrating beneath your feet. The absence of that vibration is profound. The floor is still. The building is quiet. And your body, so attuned to the rhythm, now rests in the silence. It is peaceful, deeply peaceful, the kind of peace that comes after effort, after purpose fulfilled, after work completed, not the peace of idleness, but the peace of accomplishment, of knowing that what needed to be done has been done, and done well. The lantern still burns. You can see its glow even through closed eyelids, a warm orange, gentle, soft, not bright enough to disturb, just bright enough to create a sense of safety, of not being in complete darkness, of being in a protected space, a lit space, a human space. The miller's breathing has already slowed, deepened. He is asleep, or nearly so, the sleep of exhaustion, of completion, of a man who has worked hard and earned his rest. His breathing is steady, rhythmic, adding its own quiet sound to the peaceful space. And you feel yourself drifting, your thoughts becoming less distinct, less focused, fragmenting, images replacing words, sensations replacing images, just the feeling of warmth, of support, of safety, of rest. The river flows on. The water drips slowly from the wheel. The flour dust settles, and the mill rests, silent, still, its work done for now, its purpose fulfilled. And you rest with it, your body heavy, your breathing slow, your mind quiet, sinking deeper into the burlap, into the warmth, into the peace. The night is ending. Dawn is approaching. Beyond the walls, beyond the storm clouds, the sun is rising somewhere, bringing light to the world, to the valley, to the village. But here, in the mill, there is only rest, only warmth, only the gentle sound of the river and the slow dripping of water and the deep, peaceful silence of work completed. Your last conscious thought is of gratitude for shelter, for warmth, for the work of the mill, for the transformation of grain into flour, for the simple, ancient process that sustains life, that makes bread possible, that feeds villages, that has fed humanity for millennia. And then even that thought fades, dissolves, and there is only sleep, deep, dreamless, the sleep of restoration, of peace, of a body and mind that have witnessed something ancient and essential and are now finally allowed to rest. The warmth holds you, the burlap supports you, the river sings you deeper into sleep. And you rest. And as the river continues its journey to the sea, the mill sleeps, standing guard over the village's food. You are warm, you are safe. Sleep well.